Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe, and welcome to another author interview here on the channel. Now, my guest today is making her official debut here on the channel, and she has quite the story to share with us all today. Also known by her pen name, JB Spring, she is the founder of Aour Legacy, an IT and communication consulting company, and the author of the Aour Legacy Book Series. Soon after founding Aour Legacy Consulting, my guest and her business partners realized the potential that each person they met possessed. Each person needed to find the key to unlock that potential, their magic, so to speak. This message of unlimited individual potential became their passion and driving force. And out of that passion, the Our Legacy series of books was born. As a lifelong lover of reading and watching fantasy stories, combining these two passions into a series of books seemed natural. The Our world is much like our own, primarily mundane, but a select few magi find the magic that resides within everyone as long as they can believe in themselves and the power of their minds. And to tell about all of that and more, let's give a huge round of applause to today's guest, making their official debut on the channel, author Safa JB. Safa, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Gabriel.
Awesome. So I guess let's dive right into the question. So, in your bio, you and your business partners founded this IT communications and consulting company. And from that passion, the mission statement that you guys created, that everyone has this potential in them, this drive, that created the Our Legacy book series. So, how did that happen? Like, what was the correlation between the two?
Yes, so basically, the bio said, we founded our company in 2020 and we discovered our own potential, which was like a huge discovery because, we realized we were capable of doing so much more than we thought. And also, we discovered the potential of people that we met, let it be the clients and also the people that worked with us. We realized that everyone have unlimited potential if they just believe they are capable of doing great things. They can do it. And so the idea of sharing this discovery came to mind, and we didn't want to do it through a nonfiction book. So we had this crazy idea with my partner to actually add a touch of magic and write a fantasy book because we are huge fantasy fans of series and books. And so this is how the story behind our Legacy Book Series is, and this is how I started writing the first book that I released recently.
Nice. And as a little teaser to share with our viewers and listeners, what can you tell us about the world of Our Legacy?
Yeah. So naturally, the world of our legacy has one fact is that everyone has magic within everyone. So nobody gets to decide if you get magic or not. It's not related to blood or anything else. Everyone has this dormant magic within, but only a few dare to actually believe in that magic. And so those who
Right.
believe will unlock that magic. And those who do unlock the magic will be invited to this magical academy to learn and master their abilities, I would say.
Nice. Almost kind of sounds like a little bit of Hogwarts, where everyone who's like chosen can come to this magical academy. But I imagine in Our Legacy, it's a little bit different with a lot of twists and turns and unsuspecting plot elements.
Obviously, I actually watched Harry Potter and a lot of other series also, where you want to be a part of that. You want to be invited to that magical school or that magical academy, but you just don't because you are not chosen or you're not picked. And so this is the whole plot, I would say. That's the whole twist, is that everyone can be invited. They just need to unlock
Mm,
their own magic. It starts from us. It's a decision we make, I would say.
nice. Okay. And going back a little bit in time, so in your bio, you say you are a lifelong lover of reading and specifically fantasy stories. Now, was that like instilled in you at a young age by like friends, family, and parents, or was that the series that you were naturally drawn towards?
That was yeah, they were the series that I was naturally drawn to, but also from really an early age, I would say, even before high school. But
Mm,
I became super obsessed during high school. I only watched fantasy series and read a lot of books. Obviously, Harry Potter back then was like a huge hype, and the last
yes.
were like releasing, so that was amazing. But other series as well, and the whole point is that to have this fantasy world where you can escape and be entertained, and so yeah, I was naturally drawn to this genre, I would say, in books and
Nice.
series.
And then going back again to the transition from, the passion in your IT company and working with your clients to writing the series, what was the specific like aha that, oh, we can actually take our passion with our clients, the motivation, and apply that to a book and actually make it a fantasy series. So specifically, what was the aha moment for you guys?
So yeah, we usually with my partner we spend hours, especially at the beginning of our journey, entrepreneurial journey, where we discuss where we see ourselves going with the company, and what we're trying to do here.
Right.
And so that in one of the conversations we were like, okay, we realized, we just took a moment and looked at what we were able to achieve in such a short amount of time, and
Hmm.
also talking about what XYZ person were able to achieve, and how we believed in them and how they believed in themselves, and so they were able to do great things. And so we were like, that was the discussion that led to, okay, so we want to touch more people, but in a different way, because
Right.
and this is how we were like, yeah, how about we wrote a series, a fantasy series that can maybe later on become a movie or something. So yes,
Ooh.
that's how it started, and I was like, okay, I became obsessed. So
All right.
this is, yeah, I started imagining the scenes and everything, and how we can put this idea into a book.
Nice. So now let's actually talk about the book itself. So let's talk about the inceptions, the early stages. So when you guys began writing and drafting the just outline and baseline structure of the book, what were the initial goals you had in mind with the first book, as well as what were the needs you wanted to satisfy for your prospective readers, since, of course, this is going to be set in the fantasy genre and deal with magic.
Yeah. So yeah, from the beginning, like I said, the fact that we wanted to focus on the fact that you should start by believing, and that takes time to actually work on ourselves. And anybody who would just hear the idea of, if you are able to believe in something, you're able to achieve it, but it takes a lot of time to work on the belief, and that the whole point, the essence of the magic comes from the mind. And so that was the main message that we wanted to share in the first book.
Right.
And so this is how I started drafting the first book. So I was the one writing it, drafting and outlining the first book, to see how we can actually implement this idea of the mind being the essence and the fuel of the magic. And the whole point, yeah, is to be able to entertain,
Right.
it's after all a book, so the first goal is to entertain, but also having these few messages, being present there, that would make the reader take a moment and think, you
Hmm.
know Like I said earlier, when we read a lot of beautiful stories, we're like, why not me? I want to be a part of this story, you know? So I'm hoping that with my book, people will say, like, okay, I can live sort of through the book because there are elements that I can apply in real life. If I believe in myself and my own magic in life, maybe I can get close to that kind of word
Ah,
that is being set in the book. And so that was my goal in the first book, I would say.
nice. So now let's jump ahead in the timeline. So
Mhm.
after you guys have, written the first draft, editing, finding a cover artist, formatting the book, getting to where exactly you like it. You haven't published it yet, but you're getting to the final stages. I don't know if you guys did ARC reads or beta reads for this book, but I imagine you probably shared with friends and family about what the book was going to entail and what the overall series is going to entail. So, what was the initial reaction from friends and family? Was it positive? Was it negative? Or was it sort of like in the middle?
So obviously the reaction from friends and family, I wouldn't say obviously to be honest, but the reaction of my friends and family was super positive, in a super boosting kind of way, a realistic kind of way. Because like I said, I don't have a writing background. I have an IT background, and I decided to write a book. So that's sort of crazy. So when people
Mm,
heard about it, they was like, "What do you mean? What, I thought you were working in IT, you know, you develop applications but not books, you know." And so that came with a shock but also intrigue to see what were you able to do, you know, with this story. And so when they
right.
read it, they were really interested by the story, and they were actually super positive with their reviews, because they also understood the essence of the story, and that made me feel so great. But they still are subjective, I would say. Families,
Right.
they're subjective, right? And so later on I decided to reach out to professional
Mm,
critiques, I would say, to be able to like have it professionally reviewed, and you know, get all the feedbacks from these professional readers, to be able to fix what needs to be fixed. Because like I said, friends and family will just read it and like, okay, wow, I didn't know you were able to do such a thing. This is amazing, the story is amazing. But you need to find people who are nitpicking, because you're gonna
right.
put this book into the market within, you know, a sea of other books that are really great quality. So quality of editing is super important, and it's something that I learned the hard way, I would say. um,
Hmm.
because since I am an indie author, and I decided to self-publish the book. I just self-published it at the beginning and just waited around to get people to buy it. But I didn't realize how much marketing and sales, you know, especially marketing, to
Yes.
reach the people. Actually, it's like you put it on Amazon. It's like you put it on a shelf in a huge library. People are not probably not gonna see it unless they know what they're looking for. So you need to reach the audience, and you know, get their feedback, and these are the honest feedbacks that you need. uh, Books are still subjective, you know, and people can like it or dislike it, and that's okay.
Right.
But yeah, and so I took it off Amazon, and I reworked the book again, and I released it this summer. That's not something
Nice.
that I actually had that on my social media. It's a journey of learning for me, because, like I said, I had no idea how it worked professionally. So I just wanted to make sure that the book that I'm gonna release this summer is gonna follow all the steps of a great quality publishing, despite the fact that it is indie published. And so, like I said, I have the professional critiques, a good number of professional critiques work on it with me, to get it to a point where I was super proud, and it was really good, super polished, I would say. And
That's
so
actually very nice. That
yeah.
actually is very, very good. And actually touch on a few things that we'll be covering later in the interview about, marketing, the business side of being an indie author, which
Mhm.
and personally is my favorite segment because people really don't consider, the business side of being an author, because it's not just, oh, you publish your book and it's up there and people can buy. No, unlike with traditional publishing, where they have people that specialize in marketing and that's their sole job, is to market the book. For indie authors, that's our job, in addition to a lot of other things for our books. But we will touch on that a little bit later. But one thing I do want to touch on, and I think you kind of hinted at it, Safa, which is, being an indie author, it's not an easy gig. It's not like a get rich quick scheme, because it's a passion project. It is a project that takes many, many years to bring to fruition. I'm sure you definitely agree when you guys started your IT company 4 years ago. That was a process to get off the ground. It wasn't easy to do. And same mentality with the book. It's long hours, sometimes sleepless nights. It's reworking, revising, re-editing, getting the book exactly the way you want it, finding the cover artist whose art style matches the story, because that is a huge thing, viewers and listeners, is that the cover has to match the story. I cannot tell you how many author interviews I've had with guests who have told me some horror stories of authors they have known whose books did not match the cover. And it is very, very unfortunate. And it sometimes does happen. And when we finally get the books out there on the digital stage, there's a sense of anxiety and imposter syndrome, because we don't know if people are going to like it or enjoy it. And we have that voice in the back of our head telling us all these horrible things. So for you, Safa, when you first published your book on Amazon for the first time, before you um, re-edited and got to where you wanted it for the summer, did you have those feelings of imposter syndrome and anxiety? And if no, if so, what has disciplined you to tell this story and tell everyone else that, this story needs to be told and needs to be shared with everybody?
Yeah, I the first time I released my book, so it was in summer 2022. So we're 2 years later. Yes, I had all the feelings that we can have. I can spend the day between like a roller coaster of emotions, where I'm like, okay, yay, I was able to release it. I'm a published author. This is amazing. And then all of a sudden you get the blues and you're like, okay, what if nobody likes it? And
Hmm.
I can see on social media, I'm not the only one who felt this, but it's really, really nerve wracking to get your book, especially the first one. It's like, it was like
Yes.
my baby, putting it out in the world to be critiqued, by strangers. And so every feedback can lift you up or down, actually. And I was super, super, super emotional the first days, I would say, or even later. I had people read it and give their feedback, and if the feedback was good, I would feel amazing. If the feedback was bad, I would feel absolutely bad. And so it depended, so my emotions depended on the reader for a
Right.
long time. And it took me so much time to realize that books and stories are super subjective, and people would decide to see whatever they want to see into in
Mm.
your story. And so they might like it and they might not like it, and it's okay both ways. And the only thing that made me reconsider rewriting the book is that, or re-editing, because I won't lie, I didn't go through all the steps of editing the first time,
Mm.
because I didn't know. those steps, although I actually used the help of a publishing agency in the US to get, to know the steps. And to be honest, they didn't even tell me about those steps. We worked on the first draft and we got it out there. and
Ah,
so that was for me. I was like, okay, I thought I trusted this agency to tell me, because they know how it should work, to tell me what are the steps. And they
right,
just worked on the draft with me to polish it a little bit, and then got it out there. And with the feedback of strangers, who said that it's lacking a few things in few areas or a few chapters, and I was like, okay, that makes sense, and maybe I should do more homework on my own. And so I went on this solo journey to get it right myself,
right,
and I actually even did more rounds than necessary. But for me, I needed that, because of the imposter syndrome, especially that it's not my specialty. I had it up to the roof. I feel like I'm
right,
an author. I'm not an author. I cannot be an author. I just wrote a book and I'm not even sure that it's how it should be. And so I went on to this journey of learning, and this time I just allowed myself to learn and to do mistakes and to
hmm,
just make it better and better and better. And having strangers this time have critique it and sometimes nitpick, at small details, and like and me fixing and re-editing until it got to a point where I had new critiques come in and say like I have nothing much to add. It just
right,
looks amazing. And so I felt like, okay, I think I can beat my imposter syndrome and have it released again, and this
right,
time I tried to distance myself from the book. The fact that people will give me their opinion or their feedback is absolutely subjective. And so
right,
I had to do a lot of work in these 2 years, to be able to, okay, this time I'm releasing this book. But it's okay if people not, it's amazing if people like it, but it's okay if people do not like it, because it's not made for everyone. And I have a specific message here in the book, so I'm trying to reach my audience, the people who
mm,
would understand the message that I'm trying to get through the story.
definitely. And that actually segues perfectly now into the business portion of being an author. Now, Safa, as you just mentioned, not too long ago, you went the route of an indie author. So I'm actually curious. In addition to writing this book, how did you sort of balance your work life with these two things? With writing your book and giving it the attention it needs, but also giving your attention to your IT company that you founded and working with your partners, because I imagine it's not an easy thing to balance. Well, being an author and also working at your job is not an easy thing to do. So, how was it like for you when you decided I'm going to write this book and realizing, oh shoot, I actually got to plan, when I'm going to write, how long I'm going to write, and when I'm going to get this book out?
Yeah, so to be honest, for me, it was the hardest challenge to be able to
Mm,
balance. And I wouldn't say that I was able to balance at the end, but I tried.
right.
I tried really hard. And I am the kind of person who is not a planner by default, but I had to plan because
Right.
I went in head first, and then I realized that I was not able to navigate these two projects in the same time, especially that with our clients here in France, we have to spend, we have particular hours during the day where
Right.
we meetings and such. So I don't have the freedom of time, I would say. So
Mm,
what I
okay.
used to do is actually work on it, on the book at night and during the weekends. And basically for 5 years I didn't even have a life aside from my work and my passion, but that's my passion, so I felt good about it. But
Right.
I spent my whole, like, every waking moment, aside from the hours that are uh dedicated for our clients and our projects, working on the book. And so
Mm,
obviously I did a lot of long nights, especially at the end before releasing the book, because I set I to be able to plan. I had to set up deadlines for me, although there's nobody behind me, to set up those deadlines. But
Right.
I set them up and I tried to honor them, and I honored them at the end. And so I had to like, yeah, stay super late at night for several months. I would say at least 6 months where I stay. I'm not saying people should do that again.
No.
It's me, but I stayed up until 3 a.m. Every day, and I wake up at 8 because I have my first meeting at 8:30. So that was a moment where I was like really driven with from my passion, and to be able to actually achieve this. And
Right.
there were moments where I had to cut off working, like to stop working on the book before that, after the
Hmm.
first years, to focus on the clients also and our consulting for a moment, also to breathe and have a fresh perspective
Right.
before diving in again into the book. So yeah, it was a long journey of trying different ways to be able to find the best balance, I would say, but it's not perfect balance. I would say.
Definitely. And you talked on a very important thing for, like, all indie authors, that, whatever book you're writing, whether it's nonfiction, fiction, fantasy, whatever, it's not easy. You really have to set, a time, a date, or whatever you do to get your book out. Sometimes it's like writing for 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, how many days in a week, but also realizing I also have my main job, which is going to support me and my passion, which that's also something I also can't ignore or just push to the side. So it is a teeter-totter balance for us indie authors. And now, going further, you talked about earlier that you had a specific theme, or sort of, yeah, theme in Our Legacy that you really wanted to touch with your audience. So let's actually touch on that. And I think the audience is very, very important for a book, because I've said this multiple times on the show, viewers and listeners, but it is true. When we write our books, we are the target audience because we know the story better than anyone else. But when we go to the point that we want to publish it, we really have to consider, okay, what genre does the story belong in, and who is the target audience, which is very, very important. And
Yeah.
sometimes most authors don't even consider the target audience until the very end. I've had authors who have said that they consider the audience when they're writing the outline. So for you, Safa, this is a two-part question. Do you have a good idea now, after rewriting and re-editing the book and publishing it recently, a good idea of your target audience? And also, how important and necessary is it for authors to really understand who their target audience is? Because I've had a lot of guests on the show who have mentioned other authors who just published a story out there saying, oh, it's for everybody. Well, who is everybody? Who specifically is this book geared towards?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, it's of course we want the book to be for everybody, but that's not even realistic. For me, I had to like I hate niching down and choosing,
Mm.
but I had to do it, and it makes sense because for me, the book targets, I would say me when I used to be like a younger me. I would say I
Ah,
used to
okay.
love I used to love fantasy book series, and that was sort of my escape from reality because reality was not that great, for a long
Right.
moment in high school, especially with, teenage years and a lot of things that can happen. So I buried myself into the stories, to escape reality and get entertained. But in the same time, I found it really hard for me to go back to reality because, reality
Right.
is not that amazing. So
Mm-mm.
my target audience would be for these, for the younger me, people who are like me, who would love to escape, but would love also to come back to reality feeling a little bit more balanced, And
Right.
this is why in my book I try to like put an analogy, like, similar things in life so that you feel like, okay, this is close to life. This is not something absolutely, disrupted or disconnected from life. It comes from whatever we're living, this is why I said it's mostly mundane, but with a touch of magic, so if you focus, you will feel like you can apply a few things that you lived or learned into, in my book, into real life, and so this is my specific target: people who would love to go on this journey of discovery, of growth in real life, but also love fantasy, so that
Right.
they don't get lost. Absolutely. And so people who think about growth are usually in their early 20s, I would say, or like late teen years. It depends on the people and the mind, and maturity, I would say. But yeah, it's not absolutely for everybody. And also there is no much romance in there, so people who
Mm,
would like absolutely need romance, it's not much for them, because I insisted on the first book to have this, journey that is related to the main characters, because they needed to grow, to focus on themselves, and grow as individuals before, getting, you
right.
know, getting into love interests. And because, relationships, you can get lost into them. And if you don't grow on your own, it gets a little bit complicated. And my message is to work on yourself first and foremost. And this is the target audience I am looking for with my book.
Nice. And another question, which I think is a very important question, probably one of my favorites in this segment, which is, well, a little context for this question. I'm sure you've seen growing up stuff, and even also now, books that have had this tagline saying the next so and so, the next J.K. Rowling, the next George R. R. Martin, and so forth. And from a reader's perspective, that grabs our attention. Even if we've never read the author that's being compared to, we have an instant idea of what to expect. And when we read the story, case in point, I actually have a book series by an author who has I want to say recently, but has passed away a few years ago. His name was Victor Milan, and his series was known as the Dinosaur Princess trilogy. It was supposed to be a 4-book series, but he passed away before writing the 4th book. And it is as one person put it, it is the love child of Jurassic Park and Game of Thrones. When I read that, I was instantly hooked. But from an author's perspective, that tagline on a book, even if it's our own or someone else's, may not be really helpful because, yes, people are reading those books or even our books, but we're not trying to be like the authors of the past. We're not trying to copy, we're not trying to be like them, we're not trying to mimic their style of writing. We're trying to be ourselves because when we have our readers pick up our books, we want them to know this is who we are, these are the kind of stories we write, and so forth. So, for you, Safa, what is your thoughts on sort of like this balance between, okay, we do want to highlight, who inspired us, but we still want to show the readers this is who we are as our own authors?
Yes, this is a super interesting question and also complicated as well. I'm still navigating this because for a long time I didn't want to like say that this book is, like I said, the love child, or like something meets something, because I
Right.
felt like it will get the people expectations. I wouldn't know actually what people will expect, but after a while I see that it's an effective marketing way to, because people need to know where is your book situated in the whole book market, and where are the similar books, so that I know if I like this book, then I will probably like yours. And I started doing that. So for me, it's, since we're talking about magical academies, obviously
Hmm.
Harry Potter, but there's also Aretusa from The Witcher, which was an inspiration of mine as well. But also X-Men, X Mansion or X Factor, X-Mansion, yes, from X-Men, because there's the mind power and
Right.
telekinesis, stuff like that. And so I used that tagline for a while, but there's a whole other also downside, or I would say from saying these, using these books and these references, because people will come with expectations that can be let down later on, because for example, if they loved something specific in The Witcher and they didn't find it in your book, then they will feel like they're disappointed because you were lying to them, because why did you say it's. And
Right.
also Harry Potter
Definitely.
and stuff. And I had that from reviews where they're like, okay, I'm not sure that, okay, but it's actually a magical academy. So you naturally would think about Hogwarts, and you will think about, those magical academies that we watched before. And so I took, it's inspired from elements of that. You don't create something from nothing in the same time. And so it's a little bit dangerous, I would
Mm,
say, but
yes.
can also be super helpful to get people to pick up the book and start reading. And they might be like, okay, super lenient with it and see, okay, this is a fresh perspective and I see where they look alike, but it's not the same. Or they can be like a little bit offended, like, why did you say that when it doesn't even,
Right.
so it's a little bit dangerous, but at the same time, it gets people to give your book a chance. So it depends what you want actually as an author. Do you want people to pick up your book? In that case, you need to have references like that. Or do you want people to like treat you as a unique concept? In that case, you need to convince them why they should, give a chance to your unique concept. And it's a little bit hard for me. And like I said, I'm still navigating these concepts, but I see the advantages and disadvantages of each.
Right.
And it's not easy for people to give you a chance or a shot, especially that you are not backed up by a huge publishing company that will guarantee, your quality of work. And you are not also backed up by a history of books as well. Your
Right.
new people will give you a chance only if they feel like, okay, I might like this book, but tell me why I would like this book. So you need either to use elements, strong elements, or easier, I would say, use references like that.
Definitely. And you actually touch on probably one of the biggest questions in the business side of being on. But before we get to that, there's still one more question before that. So when we were speaking of the audience, you said your audience was towards young fans who enjoyed it around your age, like for you when you were younger growing up and reading stories like these. So would you say that the Our Legacy book series would fall under, in the publishing world and under publishing terms, young adult?
Yeah, so I wanted to put it in between young adults and new adults because, the characters are a little bit, they're not in high school, because for me, it doesn't make sense for people to make huge life decisions in high school. Whereas obviously, this is what is done in the traditional publishing industry, I would say. And so I tried to put it in between young adults and new adults because of the age, but
Right.
it falls more into the young adult because it's like really it has a similar kind of adventure and journey to those we see in the young adult stories. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And the reason I bring up readership, because readership is very important, because yes, the target audience is also important, but it comes down to the readership of who's actually going to pick this up. Because I'm sure you've definitely have read a few books, Safa, just as probably as I've read books as well, where they say they're targeted for an audience in this category, but upon reading it, you realize this need a second revision, because this is not young adult or new adult or even general adult whatsoever. And that comes, with trial and error as authors. And now we come to probably the biggest question, which is probably ultimately one of my favorite questions of all. And I'll give a little context for this question, Safa, because it is, as I mentioned before, a very heavy hitter question. So for all of us, independent authors, we want to have exposure. We want to show the world our books. We want to show everyone who we are. And I've been doing these interviews now for about 2 years, and I met a wide range of authors from various backgrounds, of various skill levels, some who have dedicated their whole lives to writing, some people who are writing as a hobby and turning it into a passion, and some who are, professionally published in the traditional publishing world who have years and years of experience, but a lot of knowledge. And after now doing, these interviews for 2 years, I've now come to this understanding that for us authors, no matter if you're traditional or indie, there's something that I like to call the two paths, which is to be an author and to be known as an author, which are two very different things. For me, in my opinion, to be an author is an individual dedicated to the art of storytelling, where they're not motivated by capital, but it's nice to earn it every now and then. To be known as an author is an individual dedicated to the art of marketing, where you're promoting your book on every platform, whether it's social media, in the newspaper, on shows, on commercials, whatever. And each path has its own hurdles, trials, and tribulations. But I definitely feel the biggest hurt for independent authors, especially first time indie authors, is the second path, which is to be known as authors. And I've had a lot of other independent authors who have said that, that's the very dangerous of the two, because if you're dedicating your work so much to, hopping on trends, rewriting your story so it has these plot elements where it does not make sense, and ultimately your passion for writing is going to die. Because as I said before, if you're thinking that you're going to get rich very easily in this industry, you're not. You're absolutely not. It is not an easy business, because it is a business. Writing a book is a project. You're presenting a project, or rather, a product that you don't know if people are going to buy or be interested in. You have to sell it. And ultimately, I've come to this conclusion and realization that no matter what your debut book has, if it has, these elements, it's the best story you've ever written, or it's a revisionist in whatever genre, that does not guarantee your legacy as an author in terms of reaching that status. But I will concede that there are authors in the independent world and traditional world whose first novel did allow them to reach that legacy, that award winning status. And that is no easy feat to do with their first book. But generally speaking, for independent authors, and again, specifically first time authors, you have those moments of rise, fall, rise, and it just goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And it's not an easy pill to swallow, but it is a realization that all authors need to understand. So, Safa, I turn it to you. What are your thoughts on this discussion that, for independent authors, their debut book does not guarantee their position or their status in terms of legacy as an author, but it should not deter them from writing stories and continue to write stories if that is truly indeed their passion.
Yes, I think it's a struggle that most indie authors I see on social media. Most indie authors are struggling with the fact that they need to spend time, a lot of time, marketing and selling their book. And that takes away from the time they can spend writing the next book. And so it's super, super hard to be able, I would say, if it's in traditional publishing, you can focus as an author on storytelling and on drafting your next book, because you have a whole team that is working
Right.
selling and marketing the book. When you're an indie author, sadly, that's not even a possibility, I would say. You
Mm-mm.
cannot continue focusing on your book, hoping that by magic people would buy and the book will be marketed on its own. And so
Right.
I know that this is a huge struggle. Especially, I met a few indie authors last year because I reached out and I needed to meet. I don't have any authors in my in my little circle, so I had to reach out to people and see and just talk to them and see how it works. And I feel like everyone is having the same issue. It's either you're gonna focus on writing books, and because you might have that financial security to be able to write the books and just publish them and forget about them, or do a little work to promote them and get them just out there and then continue working on the next book. But sadly, that would not help the books that are published to get far, actually. And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like indie authors have the luxury, I would say, of choosing to work on their books and their products, because they will need to constantly think about marketing and marketing and sales. And also, everyone knows how much time and energy
Yes.
the marketing and sales take of you. And so, me, at the beginning, this is what I've done. Also, I focused on writing the book, preparing the product, making it perfect. I would say there's no such thing as a perfect book, but making it, like, trying to perfect it and work on it, but then uh, yeah, but then who would work on the sales and marketing? And this is why I decided to stop now after
Right.
publishing the first book. I need to take time to market and sell the first book, and I give myself a target, before which I cannot work on the second book, because I
Mm-hmm.
naturally feel naturally the passion, and I'm drawn into writing the second book, and bury myself into this because the story is alive in my head, and I'm obsessed about the story, and
Right.
that's, I would say, it's not easy, obviously, but that's more passionate. This is more, I'm more driven into working on the second book than marketing and selling the first book. But then I had to, like, because I have also a business background and I learned a lot during these 5 years. And so if there's something that I learned, is that you need to focus on marketing and sales and put yourself in a frame to be
Right.
able to work on it. So now I feel like that's the only thing that I need to do for a particular time, until I get my book to a number of readers before even thinking about the second book.
Definitely. And since we're almost nearing the end of this amazing interview, we just have the last few questions left. And this question kind of ties to what you're just talking about, marketing and getting your book out there. So, besides, of course, friends and family, um, you mentioned before that you were reaching out to other indie authors on social media to, learn about their experiences. And I'm wondering, are there any authors you would like to give a shout out to who have helped you understand the industry and the business a little bit better than when you started off in the beginning?
Yes, so it's most of what I learned is from my own journey and my own experience, but meeting other indie authors and having similar things, validates the experience. You validates whatever things you've learned, and in the same time, also you get to see other sides and exchange information you didn't know, and you feel like, yeah, there's a lot of information out there, but there's too much information at the same time, so you
Right.
get lost. And having another indie author telling you, I tried this and it's working for me, how about you try this before the list of other things that you can try is such an amazing thing. And so obviously I want to shout out to my to two of the indie authors I met last year. There's I met them in Korea actually.
Ooh.
And that's the thing. I love traveling, and this is like a huge part of the book as well, is because the more cultures and countries you discover, the more your mind opens up, you know, in a beautiful way. And this is a huge part of the book as well. And so when I traveled to Japan and Korea last year, I reached out to these two indie authors. So there's Apolline, who worked on 3 books, I think, so far, or at least 2 books, and she's also working the fantasy genre, and she self-published 2 books, and she's working on the third. And also, I have Maurice. I can share later with you if you want the links.
All
Who
right.
is actually used to be a traditionally published author in Russia actually, and she, I think, published 8 or 9 best-selling books. And now, since she's living in Korea, she's considering writing a book in English, and so she's considering self-publishing this book. So I learned a lot from these two beautiful women and authors, and I hope to meet even more authors and exchange our journeys. And yeah, this is
Awesome.
a beautiful part of the journey. Yeah.
Well, if you ever want to reach more authors and stuff, then feel free to check out my YouTube channel and the other authors who I've interviewed, because they are quite an amazing group of people, and I've learned a lot from them individually on certain aspects of the industry. And speaking of learning about the industry, we now arrive at the final question, which is this, Safa. So, with everything you are still learning about the industry and what you have learned from your own journey and experiences, what is your word of wisdom to other indie authors who want to start this journey themselves?
I would say, from my experience, I would say you need to hang tight, you know, because this is a wild ride with the ups and downs. You should not be discouraged, because it is a beautiful journey, especially if you believe on the story that you're going to share. So it's super important to believe on this story that you're sharing, because I see a lot of authors just trying to brainstorm stories. But if you have a specific story that is eating you up, you know, you're obsessed about this story, then don't give up. You need to get it out there. And to be honest, you need also to work on the quality of the product, because since we have nobody here to tell us no, you should not publish this, Amazon is open, you know, but you need to make
Yes.
sure that the quality of the work is top notch. In that case, you can really, with a small budget, reach out to experts, you know, to help you edit, proofread, and review the book times and times again. I actually reached out to people on Upwork with a really low specific budget, because I didn't have a huge budget as well, and I got really wonderful people ready to help me with this. And so, yeah, I would say don't be discouraged. Try to follow the steps to get your book polished and ready to be published. And yeah, good luck. Yeah.
Awesome. An amazing ending to an incredible author interview. And we
Thank you.
arrived at the end, my fellow authors, my viewers and listeners. Want to give a huge thank you to our guest, Safa, for
Thank you.
coming on the show and making her official debut on the channel. Safa, before we end, where can people find and engage with you on social media? And where can people go and buy a copy of the first book in the Aour Legacy series?
So they can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. I will give you all the links to share, and they can send me a message. I would gladly meet and talk to authors. I love doing that, so don't hesitate to do it. And the link to Amazon, and my book on Amazon would be on my bio. I can also share it with you. So yeah, that would be awesome. And if you read my book, please share with your feedback with me, because I would love to hear it.
Awesome. I'll link all those down below in the description of this video. And also, viewers and listeners, I'm going to go a little segue over here if I can reach it. Speaking of stories, as I mentioned before on previous interviews, my third book, Michael, Last Angel of Earth, is available on Barnes& and Noble currently in paperback and ebook. Currently,
Nice.
I have, thank you, Safa. Currently, I have about, I want to say almost 10 orders, which is not bad. I had quite a few during the pre order. So thank you to everyone who pre ordered a copy. I really, really appreciate it. And if you want to get your hands on this, please go to the bio in my YouTube or the link down below in the description of this video or my other videos to purchase a copy of Michael, Last Angel of Earth. And you enjoy high epic fantasy, angels and demons, gods and monsters, tragic heroes, and epic hero's journey, then Michael, Last Angel of Earth is the book for you. Well, my viewers and listeners, thank you so very much for coming to this episode and enjoying another author interview. Again, I want to give a huge thank you to Safa for coming on the show and making her debut and telling us all about her book. We are so excited for her, and who knows? Safa mentioned in the interview she's currently working on the second book, so definitely be on the lookout for her second appearance on the show, which may be sometime next year. But make sure to follow both of us on our social medias on Safa's TikTok, Instagram, and other platforms, as well as my own. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what was your favorite part of the interview. And as always, this is the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out, wishing you all a wonderful afternoon or evening wherever you are in the world.